I'll be pleased to accept Bante's invitation to give a talk here, but I'm a bit of a scatterbrain and I seldom prepare my talks beforehand. And moreover, I don't like to prepare a talk before I've gone to the place and seen the people to whom I'm going to speak, because this would involve an amount of prejudice or prejudgment, and I therefore prefer to go and see the people and feel the atmosphere and speak accordingly. Also, I prefer to have audience participation, because if I were to go on talking and talking without any participation, perhaps it would just go in one ear and out of the other. So rather than just speaking for a long time, perhaps someone would like to ask a question to start us off with, so I can know something of what you want to know. You may ask anything you like, and the questions are yours, the answers... No, anything. The questions are yours, the answers are mine. I think that the success of a Dharma talk depends just as much upon the listeners as it does upon the speaker. And each depends upon the other, because without the listeners, the speaker has no meaning, no relevance. The speaker depends upon the listeners depend upon the speaker. So it's a cooperation. Then let me say that perhaps some of you are rather puzzled by my appearance. Maybe you're thinking, what kind of monk is this? Mahayana or Theravada? Well, I must say that I'm neither. In fact, I don't know what I am. I don't know who I am yet. I'm still trying to find out. So it would be a mistake to put a label on anyone really. We don't know. And in order to pursue our search, our inquiry effectively, we must keep open minds. Not to decide or make up our minds in a fixed and rigid way. We must be prepared to say, I don't know, because this is true. And if we can say, I don't know, then we leave ourselves open to learn. We're just beginning on this path. And we must keep beginner's minds, always fresh and new, always open to learn, not with minds already made up, as if we've arrived already, because we haven't. You know, one of the central concepts of Buddhism is that of karma. But many of us, we learn this word and we use it too freely without really understanding it. And it's not something of our own experience. It's something we've picked up from books or listening to Dharma talks. And very often we say, oh, it's his karma when something unfortunate happens to someone, as if we know, when in reality we do not know. And so we're prepared to make judgments about people's situations and to dismiss them casually and conveniently. I think it's a good thing to be able to say about one's own misfortune, it is my karma. Because it helps us then to accept it and to deal with it. But to say about other people, their misfortunes, oh, it's his karma, I think we have to be very careful about this. Some years ago, when I was in Melbourne, someone told me of a young man who had gone into hospital for a minor ear operation. And the operation had gone wrong. And his brain was oxygen starved, and he became paralyzed. Before, he was young, strong, healthy, and handsome. And afterwards, just a few hours later, he was a prisoner in his body. Not able to live, not able to die, caught in between. Now, why this happened, we cannot say. Certainly it wasn't an accident. There are no accidents in life. Everything arises because of causes. He didn't try to be like that. He didn't want it to happen to him. It happened. But we cannot know why. So I think we have to be very careful about saying, oh, it is his karma. As if we have direct perception of it. Do we know for a fact that karma is true? Or is it just a belief with us? Like Christians believe in God and His grace and His favor and His punishment. Moreover, is it important, is it necessary to believe in the law of karma in order to be a Buddhist, in order to follow the Buddha's way? Is it necessary to believe? Can we live responsibly and follow the Buddha's way without believing in this, without believing in anything, in fact? Is it necessary to believe in life after death? Because right now, most of us have no personal experience of it. We do not know that it is a fact, that life goes on after death. We believe, I accept this theory too, but I've had no personal experience of it, and therefore I don't feel qualified to say anything about it. If I were to talk about it without having experience of it, I would be then in just the same position as people who talk about God and heaven and all things like that. So I prefer not to say. That is just my personal opinion. And I don't want to foist my opinions onto other people. I like to talk about things that we can experience here and now, in this life. Because Dharma is something to be lived, to be experienced. So I want to talk about reality. For example, if I say, water is wet and fire is hot, who can say that's not true? Water is dry and fire is cool. No matter what nationality, race or religion one is, one cannot say that is not true. That is a fact. That is Dhamma. So, is it necessary to believe in karma in order to follow the Buddha's way? Well, all religions have their techniques or methods of leading people on, of bringing order into society, of persuading people to live responsibly and morally. The Christians and other religions emphasize heaven and hell. Heaven as a reward for living well in this life, and hell as a punishment for not living well. But this technique has been overdone. people no longer accept it. They say, where is it? Show me heaven and hell. You've been talking about it for so many thousands of years, and you haven't been able to demonstrate it. As a technique, it must be effective. Otherwise it becomes just a dogma that binds instead of liberates and helps us to improve ourselves. Now, if a mother says to her child, if you're good, I will give you a candy. If you are naughty, I will spank you. This is her technique to persuade her child to behave himself. Now, children usually like candies but don't like spankings. So this technique might be effective in persuading the child to behave himself. But are we still spiritually children that we need such threats and promises in order to live responsibly now? Can we not see that to live responsibly is its own reward immediately? To do good just for the sake of doing good without thinking of getting anything in return. This is a much more mature approach than being afraid of punishment or wanting reward for doing something. Many people, many Buddhists, are motivated by the desire for merit. And they will do all kinds of things. Donate a lot of money and a lot of things, perform charity, practice meditation, observe precepts, chant, and so on and so on, unaware of their motives for doing such. I think it would be better to know or to investigate why we do what we do, instead of being in a hurry to get results, instead of being in competition with other people, instead of being afraid of not making progress. If we understand how much we depend upon other people, how much we benefit from the labors of others, and how much we owe, how much we are in debt to others for our daily existence, the natural response is gratitude. We need to consider this, how much we depend upon others. We cannot live by ourselves. It is impossible. This, I think, is the meaning of anatta, no self-existence. We do not and cannot live by and for ourselves. It's absolutely impossible. Just look at yourselves now. Where did your clothes come from? And your spectacles? Where did this building come from? And the chair you sit on? Did you make them all? Did you grow your own food? Did you make your own car and your own TV and refrigerator? All these things came from other people working in cooperation with each other. We cannot possibly know how many people are involved in our daily existence, because no sooner would we identify some of them than we would find other people behind them, supporting them. And so we go further and further out from ourselves until finally, if we were able to trace it, we would find the whole universe involved in our existence. Something marvelous. We are not alone. We may be lonely sometimes, but we are never, ever alone. Even if you're on your own, you're never alone. And our lives have meaning only in context. Alone, we do not exist. There is no meaning to our lives if we think of ourselves in isolation. No meaning whatsoever. Only in context do we have meaning. Only in relationship to other people and other things is there meaning to our lives. We could say that each one of us is like
a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. Only in relationship to the other pieces of the puzzle, only in its proper place does it have meaning. But you look at each piece by itself, you cannot deduce from each piece the overall picture. But fitted together with the other pieces in its proper place, then it has meaning. And so our lives are like this. We have meaning only as part of something much bigger than we. And when we think about this, when we understand it deeply, we feel love, we feel gratitude to the other pieces of the jigsaw puzzle which support us. This is why right understanding comes at the first stage of the Eightfold Path. And you will notice that there's no stage such as right belief, right understanding. So we must see clearly at the beginning. We must be somewhat enlightened in the beginning. Enlightenment doesn't come just at the end. We must be somewhat enlightened to begin, and not to be in a hurry to possess and to attain, but to see clearly what we have now. You know, meditation is becoming more and more popular, unfortunately, because then people consider it something new and something special, instead of understanding it as something normal and ordinary, something that has been going on all our lives without us being aware of it. When we hear of this meditation, and there are so many kinds of meditation, it's become fashionable and elitist. Oh, what kind of meditation are you doing? Samatha? Oh, I'm practicing vipassana. As if vipassana, insight, can be practiced. How can we practice insight? Insight is something that we either have or we do not have, and it cannot be practiced. It comes or it does not come. Usually does not come, does not arise. And it is not up to us to force it to arise. It is not within our capacity to force insight to arise. It arises when we are receptive, when our minds are calm and quiet, when we are struck with the realities of the life, deeply moved by deep impermanence, the suffering of life all around us. It strikes us and shakes us to the heart of our being. Then insight arises. Like when Prince Siddhartha went out of the palace to see the city, and he was confronted by sights that the story says he'd never seen before. An old person, a sick person, and a corpse. The story says they were all men. Why only men? Did women in those days never get sick or old or die? It's very sexist, isn't it? So I prefer to say an old person or a sick person. And he was so struck by these things. He reflected back, can I become like this? Am I subject to this condition? Shocked. He didn't become enlightened only under the Bodhi tree. This was the culmination. He'd had many enlightenment experiences. Early on, when he went out to the ploughing festival and sat under the jambu tree, he also had an enlightenment experience. Now, what enlightenment experiences have we had? We're all somewhat enlightened, a little bit. We couldn't be here like this if we were not somewhat enlightened already. We must build on it, but we must know what is enlightenment. It's a good word, it's a very apt word. It's like when you turn on the light in the night, then you see things clearly. Enlightenment is like that, seeing clearly and understanding clearly, where before there was only ignorance and confusion. Several years ago, a lady who had recently lost her husband to cancer once said to me, "You know, I've been practicing Dharma for some years now, but I've never had a spiritual experience." I thought, what an interesting statement. I wonder what she means by a spiritual experience. Something extraordinary, something special, maybe like levitating, or walking through walls, or walking on water, things like this. But is not life itself a spiritual experience? Is this not itself a spiritual experience? Nothing special. Something ordinary. But we do not see it and we do not understand it. All we have to do is to see what is here. But we do not see this, and so we look for something more. All our practices, our dana, sila, bhavana, are motivated with the desire of getting something more, instead of seeing what we've already got. We have so much already. But we're looking out for something more, instead of seeing what is here. Now, where did the Buddha's enlightenment come from? Did it come from the tree, or the full moon, or the direction he was facing? Some years ago, in the refugee camp in Philippines where I spent some time, some Cambodians came to me one day in the temple, and they said to me, "You know, this is not a proper temple." I said, "Oh, why not?" "Because the Buddha image is facing the west, and the Buddha image should face the east." I said, "Oh, how come?" "Because that's the direction he was facing when he became enlightened." "Oh, I see," I said. "In that case, it is correct as it is. Because when the Buddha is facing west and you are facing the Buddha, it means you are facing east. And if enlightenment arises because you face the east, it is correct. The Buddha doesn't need any more enlightenment. You do. So you face the east if you believe that enlightenment arises from facing the east. We become attached and stuck on silly things, minor, unimportant details, instead of seeing the essence. And the Buddha said, in the essential, people see the unessential. In the unessential, they see the essential and never go beyond delusion. So, the form of things should not be taken for the essence. Buddhism itself, the organization, is like a container. But the container is not the contents. Without the container, however, the contents would have been lost long ago. So the container has a purpose, but the container is not the contents. Don't mistake the container for the contents. Be grateful to the container, yes, but see beyond, see deeper, look within. There are three things that we must understand. Buddhism as the organization, the religion, and it is a religion, although many people say it is not. It certainly is a religion to millions of people. Buddha Dharma as a body of teachings, which is just one amongst many other bodies of teachings, just as Buddhism is only one of many religions in this world. Now both Buddhism and Buddha Dhamma had a beginning in time, and we can say exactly where they began. Exactly. They began with the Buddha's enlightenment. And whatever has a beginning in time naturally will one day come to an end and disappear. All that is born must die. How shall it be otherwise? So, Buddhism now is more than 2,500 years old. It's old and tired, and it's not the same as it was when it first began its long journey. And nor is this surprising. You cannot buy a new car and drive it for 100,000 kilometers and expect it to be as new and shiny as when you first bought it. It is not surprising that Buddhism has changed and absorbed elements that were never there originally, has branched out into many different forms, embodies a lot of superstition. This is not surprising. This is quite in accordance with anicca. However, if you see that the container, the vehicle, the organization is not what it was, don't be upset. Look deeper and find out what it contains. Don't just throw it all away because you see the outside is somewhat dusty and scratched. Look deeper. Moreover, understand that the Buddha's teachings are like a finger that points at the moon. But don't mistake the pointing finger for that which it points at. Dhamma has no beginning and no end. This is what we should look for while we have the opportunity. Rare and wonderful opportunity. And somehow we have come into contact with Dhamma in this life. This is something wonderful. Well, you might say, but everybody can have contact with Dhamma if they want to. It's quite readily available. It's not some secret teaching that you have to be initiated into. This is true, but not everyone has the interest. And Dhamma is not something magical that works miracles just by being there. We have to use it. We have to understand it ourselves. We have to make it our own. So why are we interested in this when so many other people are not? On New Year's Day this year, I was at Sarnath in India. And I don't know if any of you have been there, but Sarnath is about 10 kilometers outside of Benares, India's holiest city. And on New Year's Day, I went to the deer park, wanting to be quiet. And I found the place crowded with picnickers, and people playing music and even dancing there. Near the stupa, there was a Tibetan Lama giving a Dharma talk to a group of mainly Westerners, many monks and many nuns. But the Indian people were just enjoying themselves on the grass, picnic and even playing cricket there. Very unpeaceful. Well, I wanted to be quiet, so I passed through the crowds and went and sat at one side under a tree. And before I sat down, I felt something is going to happen. I didn't know what, but I had a feeling something was going to happen. And people were coming past me, laughing and joking and making fun, as they do. But I didn't pay much attention to them. I just sat there quietly. After some time, somebody came and stood at one side of me, looking at me intently. I could feel him looking at me. I thought, what's this? But I didn't move. After some time, he sat down at one side, and I thought, oh, he wants something. Well, let him wait. I will test him to see if he really wants something, or if he'll get fed up of waiting and go away. So I sat there for about 20 minutes, and then I stirred myself. And he got up and came over to me, and politely said to me, I have seen you sitting here, and I would like to ask you some questions, if I may. I said, yes, it's all right. He said, I'm interested in meditation. I would like to know about meditation. He said, I've been to many places looking for answers, but I haven't found any. I said to him, have you seen the Tibetan Lama over there speaking to a crowd of mainly Westerners? He said he hadn't. Anyway, I said, they're over there. These people have left the comfort and luxury of their homes on the other side of the world to come here to India, which is often very uncomfortable, very dirty, and where people are rather rude. Why? Coming here to listen to a Dharma talk. The Indian people who live here, not at all concerned with that. All they want to do is enjoy themselves, far away from Dhamma. Why are you different? I asked him. Why aren't you enjoying yourself like all these other people? Why do you want to know about these things? I said, don't answer. You don't know. And that's right. You don't know. It is something inside that brings about this search, this inquiry. I asked him, do you know the significance of this place? And although he was a student of philosophy in Benares University, he said, not very well. I said, this is the place where the Buddha gave his first sermon to his 5 former companions who'd left him some months earlier when he had started to eat to regain his strength to continue his search, and they thought he'd gone back to a life of luxury, and they'd left him in disgust and disappointment. And after his enlightenment, the Buddha looked around with his psychic vision to see who he could share his discovery with. And he saw, psychically, he saw these 5 ascetics staying in a deer park near Benares, about 250 kilometers away. So he went there. Took him a few weeks. He didn't hurry. And when they saw him coming in the distance, at first they decided to ignore him, pay no attention to him. He's given up the search. But as he got nearer, his bearing was so impressive and so dignified that they had no choice but to get up and welcome him and receive him politely and respectfully. And one prepared a seat for him, another brought water to wash his feet and water to drink, another took his bowl and robes. And when he had sat down, he started to teach them, to explain to them what he had found about the 4 Noble Truths, about dukkha, the origin of dukkha, the end of dukkha, and the way to the end of dukkha. I asked this young man, can you visualize this scene? The Buddha speaking to these 5 ascetics. Now you've all probably seen various pictures of this scene. The pictures from Thailand generally show the monks all sitting in identical postures, very respectfully, with robes all the same, exactly the same, their heads all shaved the same, looking like statues, sitting in meditation posture. I don't believe it was like that. I visualize them sitting in different postures, perhaps even like this, but paying complete attention, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, and not even thinking about the present, and not thinking about meditation. But they were in meditation, spontaneous, natural meditation. And as the Buddha spoke, one of them understood. His name was Kondanya. And the Buddha could see this. When a person understands deeply, it shows on his face, and you can see it. I've seen it once. It's the most marvelous thing to see. He said, Kondanya has understood. This was meditation. If we pay attention, close attention to what is going on, this right now can be an occasion for enlightenment. Enlightenment can arise like this. Not necessarily because of the subject matter that is being spoken of, but just because you're paying complete attention. I believe that enlightenment is always near, not far away, but usually we are not mindful, we are not attentive. We're thinking so many things. The mind is not quiet and calm and clear. We want something. We listen with a purpose. What can I get out of this? How can I benefit? And this prevents us from seeing. We look, but we do not see. Now, what is the difference between looking and seeing? Looking is active. Seeing is passive and receptive. Like when we understand something, we say, oh yes, I see. And in this sense, even a blind man can say, I see. But when we look with a mind full of ideas of the thing we're looking for. And if we know what it is we're looking for, then we can find it. But do we know what is truth? What is enlightenment? What is nibbana? What is happiness? We do not know. We've just got ideas about them. And so, these ideas prevent us from seeing the real thing. It is like a person who goes to the seashore looking for pearls. And the idea he has of a pearl is of something red in color and triangular in shape. So he goes to the beach looking for a red and triangular object, looking in the rock pools, turning over stones, opening shells, and so on. And perhaps he comes across a small, round, white object. But he thinks, that's not a pearl. The pearl I'm looking for is red and triangular. So he passes on. And he may indeed find a red and triangular object, but it will not be a pearl. Enlightenment comes to us, not we go to enlightenment. We can prepare ourselves for it somewhat, but we cannot force it to arise. We can prepare ourselves by making ourselves sensitive, making ourselves more open and receptive, living as far as possible in an enlightened way, even while we're not fully enlightened. Then it is easier for enlightenment to arise. And if it does not arise, even then, never mind, we will still have the satisfaction of knowing that we are living in a responsible way, here and now. And from this arises joy, this indispensable spiritual quality. Joy is something different than happiness, something much more spiritual than happiness. Joy is a buoyant quality. It lifts us up, it makes us feel light and clear. It is the opposite of depression and sadness and gloom. And joy comes from seeing how we live together with others as part of a community and of belonging to it. To feel all alone, to feel unimportant, to feel lost is something quite horrible. But we feel like that quite often. And this is because we do not see clearly how we are important. Now, in what way are we important? Not as most people think, that they're better than others, or richer than others, or more powerful than others, or more handsome or good-looking than others. Not like this. We are important not by trying to be important or special, but just as we are. Each one of us is unique as a human being. There has never been another person like us before. There is not now, there never will be. And moreover, we change every minute. We're not the same person from one second to another. Each moment, we are special. Nobody can occupy our place. Nobody can be us. And we cannot be anyone else. We can only be ourselves. So there's a lot to be discovered. And it is a joyous thing to discover, to learn. We must be happy and joyful that we have found this thing. And try not to lose it. Try to increase our enlightenment while we have the opportunity. Because we're not going to live very long. And after we die, who knows what happens? Don't count on meeting a Buddha in the future life. Don't waste your opportunity now. The Dharma is here, still here. Many people think, oh, in this life, no chance to become enlightened. Better I chokong tek, make merit for the future life, and then maybe I can meet my Triya Buddha, and he can help me to become enlightened. So they put off doing what should be done now. They waste their opportunities. Don't think that just by meeting a Buddha, if you're fortunate enough to meet a Buddha, you will become enlightened thereby. Of all the people who met Gautama Buddha, only a very small proportion became enlightened. It's not enough to meet a Buddha. And he said, he who sees the Dharma sees the Buddha. You cannot see the Buddha with these eyes. You see only his body, his form, and that is impermanent. That is not the Buddha. By seeing the Dharma, by understanding Dharma, we see the Buddha, and therefore it is still possible to see the Buddha now. So we have wonderful opportunity. Yesterday I went to the refugee camp at Sungai Besi. It It is often difficult to know what to say to these people because their situation is so unfortunate. It is easy to talk about things when you're not in such a situation. Would I be able to say the same things if I were in their situation? And yet, what is the purpose of me going there if I do not do anything to try to elevate them in some way, to inspire them, to cheer them up? And so I told them of experiences I'd had earlier with other refugees, how when I went to America and Canada in 1984 and 85 to visit Vietnamese people who'd been resettled there earlier, some of them had said to me, you know, here we have a good life. We have money, we have house, car, TV, clothes and good food and so on. But we're not happy because we have no time. And we'd like to be back in the refugee camp. Several people said this to me. And I said, yes, I understand. Because when living in the refugee camp with them, I saw people sometimes very happy. It was possible to be happy there, even in such poor conditions where they didn't have many of the basic necessities even, and very little luxury. I saw it was possible to be happy, and I knew many happy people there. They were able to laugh. A refugee laughing in a refugee camp? Yes, it is possible. And one time in the refugee camp, I went down to the departure area where people were getting ready to leave the camp to go to America. And one young man there said to me, I have been here for 7 months, and my only thought was of being resettled. And now it is the day of my departure, and I'm sad, and I don't want to leave, because I see now that the hills around the camp are green. The hills around the camp had been green not just on that day, but he'd never seen them before, because his eyes were full of the future, not paying attention to what was there. Happiness is something very simple. It comes to us quite frequently, perhaps many times each day, for short periods. It arises because of certain causes, and likewise passes away. But we often do not recognize it. We think happiness must be something extraordinary. But just let it come on its own. I said to them, a mountain, a tree, an elephant, a house is big in comparison, are big in comparison with our eyes. And yet all these things fit into the eye. The world is within us, not outside. Happiness, sadness are inner qualities. Not material qualities, inner qualities. So if you pay attention, you will see that happiness comes to us quite often. But it cannot be caught and possessed like most people are trying to do. Catch it. Like trying to catch the wind in a bottle. Can the wind be caught in a bottle? Air can, but not wind. If you try to catch the wind in a bottle, you've stopped its movement, and you've got only air.
Wind is air, but air is not wind. Wind is air that moves, and when you stop it moving, it's no longer wind. It's only air. So we cannot catch happiness and possess it. We must let it come and let it go. And when it goes, don't be sad. It will come again. When you're sad, don't be sad about that. Don't be double sad. Know that just as it came, it will also go. And who would like to be happy all the time? Anybody? Everybody? Would you like to be happy all the time? No, you wouldn't. You'd soon get fed up. It would be boring. Happiness has meaning only because of sadness. We can only know happiness because of sadness. Now, you tell me that you like to be happy all the time. What is your favorite food? KFC? Durian? If durian is your favorite food and someone says to you, oh, very good, I will give you durian for breakfast, lunch and dinner and nothing else, every day. How long would you continue to like durian? You would soon grow to hate durian. Don't bring me that food again. Anything else but durian. And likewise, if we were happy all the time, we wouldn't be happy. We would be bored. And boredom is a rich man's disease. Can you imagine the people in Somalia being bored when all the time their only thought is of how to survive? Never. We are bored because we have too much and we do not understand our good fortune. Then we start to complain instead of seeing our blessings. Don't make happiness the goal of life. Make understanding your goal. Now, most of us have to earn a living in one way or another. And Buddhism teaches us about right livelihood, how to avoid earning our living in ways that cause pain to others, how to see our work as of benefit to others. But how many people do see their work as being of benefit to others? Most people work only for money. And because of this, work becomes a drudge. And people work with long faces, miserable, complaining, oh, I hate my work. I would say maybe most people in the world work like this and get no joy or satisfaction from their work because they see it only as a way of earning money. Whereas if we saw our work as a way of serving others, we will get a feeling of satisfaction. It doesn't matter what kind of work you do, as long as it's not harmful to others. Even only sweeping the streets. People look down on street sweepers. A menial job. Yet it's a very important job. And it benefits others. So if a person understands that by sweeping the streets, he's performing a very useful service to others, his work then becomes ennobled. It's not lowly work or menial work. It's noble work. It depends how you do it. And from that, you get a feeling of satisfaction. Whatever work you do, follow it. Follow its effects outwards from you and see how it affects others. And your work will take on a completely different meaning than if you work just for money. Don't believe this. Try it. It's very important. And if you do that, you will find you have much more energy and much more satisfaction. And that is extremely important, to get job satisfaction. And it becomes a spiritual exercise, part of your Dharma practice.
And remember, we're not living just for ourselves. We're living for the world. And Dhamma is something universal, not the exclusive property of Buddhism or Buddhists. It's universal. So, when we understand it like this, it has the effect of opening us, like a lotus flower, making us wide open, able to see beyond the differences between people, and to focus instead on the similarities, the things that we have in common. So Dharma unites. Well, I've gone on for quite a long time already, and I didn't know what I was going to say when I came here. And now, I hope I haven't anesthetized you and put you to sleep. You're very quiet there, and I'm always a little bit apprehensive of such quiet. Sometimes I think, have they understood what I've said very clearly, or have I put them to sleep? So, okay, give me a break now, and if you have any questions, please ask. And we'll go on from there. Renunciation. I think you know my opinion yourself already, because you've already explained. You said when people do not understand about this, they think the Buddha's act of renunciation was something selfish, because he abandoned his wife and child. Well, he was a prince, and he didn't leave them, unprovided for. And he said, it is not because I didn't love my wife and child. I didn't love them any the less, but I loved the world more. And it was necessary for him to leave them in order to come back and help them later on. And he helped them in a much better way later on than he could have done had he remained as a prince. He led them to enlightenment. Both Rahula, his mother, Yasodhara, and King Suddhodana. He helped them in a much better way than ever he would have been able to help them had he remained in the palace. So, we cannot look just at appearances of things. We must follow up things and see the effects and the results. And the end result was good. Better than anything anybody could have wished for. Now, it brings us to the question of why monks live as they do, apart from their families, without wives. The lifestyle of the monks was designed by the Buddha to make it easier for them to follow the way. This doesn't mean that householders cannot follow the way. But the household life is full of problems. There is joy and happiness too, to be sure, but there are many problems, as probably most of you know. It's not all pure, unalloyed happiness. Now, a surgeon has to operate on people almost every day. On complete strangers, he can operate with a steady hand. But suppose his wife or child were brought into the operating theatre on the table before him. Do you think his hand would be as steady as when he operates on a stranger, someone with whom he has no emotional involvement? Hardly likely. This is the reason why monks leave their home and family, to cut off the emotional entanglements of family life, to be able to treat people impartially, without favoritism. And therefore people come to the monks with all kinds of problems. You can't know about it, not having been monks yourself. All kinds of problems, some of them really silly problems and irrelevant problems. But they come and they want to talk about their problems to the monk. And they know that the monk will listen to them, even if he doesn't give any advice or help them. And very often this is all that is needed, someone to listen to them. It's therapeutic. And often their problems are relieved thereby because they've been able to express them to somebody. And so the monk fulfills the role of counselor and sympathetic listener. And this is very important. And many people have no one that they can talk to or confide in. And they keep their problems inside, where they go round and around and fester and get bigger and bigger until somehow they explode in ways that cannot be controlled. Whereas if we would somehow unburden ourselves, there wouldn't be so much danger of an explosion. So people come and they pray to the Buddha statue. Even though, strictly speaking, this is incorrect. You can see them coming and sometimes you can read their lips, what they're saying. Help me, I'm in trouble, I need answers, please help me with my problem. Yeah? Does the statue ever say, okay, don't worry, I will help you? Never. So if you talk to the statue and you get an answer, it will not come from the statue, it will come from yourself, which is also good. The very act of expressing yourself results in clarification. So although it's really not correct to talk to the Buddha statue, neither is it bad. It's not right, but it's not bad. It can even be good. So if you yourself don't pray to the Buddha statue, and you think, that's the wrong way, don't condemn others who do. They may be at that level, and they may get answers from themselves by doing so. So something can be wrong, but at the same time, not bad. And the monk is here to listen to anyone. Sometimes it becomes rather tedious. People come back again and again, this monk will listen to me. It doesn't matter if I take 2 or 3 hours of his time. I had one woman come to me in Melbourne last year. Oh, if I hadn't stopped her after 3.5 hours, she'd have gone on for all day. And next time, I didn't allow her to talk so long, only 2 hours the second time. But, the monk makes himself available and listens sympathetically. Enlightenment, whatever degree of enlightenment we reach, is not just for ourselves. It must be shared. To have any meaning, it must be shared. So the Buddha attained enlightenment, and the effects of that have gone on for until now and have influenced and helped countless people. Had he remained a prince, he could have given away his worldly wealth and helped a few people only. But the wealth of the Dharma is inexhaustible, and we've got some of this. It is not like money. The more money you give to others, the less you'll have yourself. But with Dharma, the more you give to others, the more you share with others, the more you have for yourself. Something wonderful. But don't be afraid of losing it by sharing it with others. It only increases thereby. You make room in yourself for something else. So it certainly was not a selfish or irresponsible thing to do for Prince Siddhartha to leave his wife and child. Not at all. This was the greatest act of love. Had he died before he reached enlightenment, as he almost did, then it would have been a waste. Then it would have been selfish. But he didn't. He attained. And he came back. And we are beneficiaries of his enlightenment. Is there another question? Or is it time to finish? They've exhausted all their questions over the years. What is the difference between Buddhist meditation and other forms of meditation? Well, what do you mean, first of all, by Buddhist meditation and other forms of meditation? Why do you discriminate? In what way is it different? Technique. Don't be stuck on the form. Lots of people get stuck on their techniques and form and become like dogs running round in circles chasing their own tail, convinced that they're becoming enlightenment by doing certain things. Why are we doing it? What do we want? Know your reason, know your motives. And you're halfway there already. But if you do not know your reasons for doing what you do, you'll only become more confused. Don't be in a hurry, afraid of being left behind. Like I said before, insight cannot be practiced. How can you practice insight? It's not possible. It's not within our capacity. Any way that leads you to see things clearly is right meditation. Whether you call it Buddhist meditation or other meditation. Do you think enlightenment is only for Buddhist people? I don't think it's exclusive like that. It's not restricted like that. Cannot be. Dharma is universal. And it is, when we understand Dharma, we can see it in other religions too, not just in Buddhism. We can find it in any newspaper, if we understand what it is. Something ordinary. But you see, we're looking for something special, and so we discriminate. We say, I am a Buddhist. And when we say this, what happens is that we separate ourselves from other people who are non-Buddhists. Instead of seeing our basic humanity, instead of seeing beyond name and form, we see appearance only. And anyone who identifies himself with a particular way must think and feel that that way is the best way. Otherwise, he wouldn't follow it. Search for Dhamma, universal Dhamma, not name and form. Now, there are many forms, branches or sects of Buddhism, and people get sidetracked with these things. Identify themselves with Tibetan Buddhism or Zen Buddhism or Thai Buddhism or whatever. They become polarized. Why do they choose a particular branch? Why not go to the roots? Westerners are prone to this, becoming sectarians. Because being from non-Buddhist backgrounds, they must approach things with open minds. Now, which sect or branch of Buddhism are they going to choose? And why? And why not? Why reject the others? Depends upon personal preference. But very often people think, my way is the best way. In some cases they think, my way is the only way, just because it is their way. So this is a matter of ego. Instead of trying to find diamonds wherever they are to be found. We need all the help we can get. Anything that helps us to understand should be used with gratitude. Very often, people ask each other, who is your teacher? And people play games around this question. A lot of people like to say, oh, my teacher is such and such a famous monk, well-known monk, this guru or that Rinpoche, and so on. Well, sometimes when people have asked me this question, they've seemed a little bit surprised when I answered, my teacher is a monkey. And some of them have thought that I was making joking references to monks. But I wasn't. I meant what I said. My teacher, or one of my teachers, because I have so many teachers, was a monkey. I told them the story of how when I was in the refugee camp, one day an old Cambodian woman came to the temple with a young monkey that she'd bought in the camp market. She'd spent some of her limited funds to buy this monkey and bring it to the temple where she knew no one would kill it. And some of the refugees used to eat monkey, or others buy them for pets. And when I saw this monkey, I got so sad because its right hand had been cut off at the wrist when it had been trapped in the forest, and 2 bones were sticking out of it. Got so far. I thought, this monkey has been trapped in the forest by a refugee, someone who had left his home and family and country to find peace and freedom and happiness. But he'd gone to the forest to catch monkeys, never thinking for a moment that these creatures also wished to be free and happy and had families and friends in the forest. They sold it in the camp market for a couple of dollars, which he would spend in a minute or so, but the effects of his action would go on for a long time. I thanked the old woman and praised her for her kindness, and told somebody to tie the monkey up at the back of the temple while I went in search of someone who could treat its wound. But I couldn't find anybody, and I didn't know what to do. If I bandaged it and put ointment on it, it would have pulled it off in an instant. I didn't know what to do. So I just left it there and told somebody to give it something to eat and drink. And after a couple of days, when I went to see it, I was surprised to find only 1 bone sticking out of its wrist. How it had broken the other off, I don't know. And 2 days later, the other bone was also broken off. And the flesh and the skin began to grow around the wound until it was completely healed without any infection. I thought, this is wonderful. I've been all over the world. I've studied many things. I've learned a little bit. But with all my knowledge, I didn't know what to do. This monkey had never been to school, didn't know how to read or write, never studied first aid or medicine, but somehow it knew what to do to save its own life. How is this? Nobody had taught it or told it to do that. Somehow it knew by itself what to do. We call it instinct. We think we understand it because we know the word for it. I would call it innate wisdom. And I thought, if this monkey can know by itself what to do to save its own life, what if we listen more to ourselves instead of depending so much upon others to be taught? What if we learned more? Therefore, I say, my teacher is a monkey. One of them. And, I mean, it's like learning how to walk. We've all gone through this process. How did we do it? Our parents didn't say to us, look at me, baby, and follow what I do. No one teaches us how to walk. And you can observe babies learning how to walk. It's a very painful thing and a very frustrating process. They fall down many times and cry, sometimes cut themselves. But always they get up and go on again until finally they succeed. We know many things without being taught. So we must listen to ourselves. All that we need to know is within us. All that we need to know for our Dharma faring is within us. And if we will understand what we want in life, we will also understand others. It's quite simple. I want to be happy. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to suffer. I like people to be kind to me. I don't like people to hurt me or deceive me or cheat me. We understand ourselves and our feelings in this way, and we will also understand others because they feel exactly the same. And then we will know what to do in our relations with others. Very simple. Even little children can understand it. You don't need a PhD to understand this. It's very simple. But I'm sorry that I have to tell you that unlike what Venerable said before, I won't be here on Sunday morning to give a talk because I have a Dharma appointment somewhere else. But perhaps the following Sunday, if people would like me to come back, I would be happy to do so. But may I ask you, have some questions ready? I'll have to talk with Venerable Saravanan tomorrow. If I can make it on Sunday, I will. We are very grateful to Reverend Abhinyana for giving a very liberal ideas. Usually those who cling to certain concept and belief cannot understand why he speaks like this. In one of his teachings, the Buddha has mentioned, we should not develop our craving even towards the Dhamma. That is called Dhamma Tanha, craving for the Dhamma. We develop our craving and inclination towards the concept and belief. After that, we try to justify according to our way of thinking. Then it later become our concept, our belief. This will become an hindrance for our spiritual development. The Buddha has given a parable. He says, when you want to cross a river, if there is no boat, you can make a raft by collecting piece of wood and cross the river. After crossing this river, it is not necessary for you to carry that craft that you have made. That is for you just to cross the river. The Dhamma is for you to get rid of all your sufferings and worries and disturbances, but not for you to crave for that. So all the liberal ideas that we give, agreeable in the teachings of the Buddha. That is why in our talk we mention certain terms that people don't like because they cannot understand. I say that Buddha is not a Buddhist. I say that Nibbana is not reserved only for Buddhists. It is true, but you cannot understand. You never agree. Because we cling to this belief as this is our. So, I hope what he has mentioned, you can think and try to enlarge or widen your knowledge and understanding of the Dhamma without narrowing and clinging to certain belief and concept that you have. So thank you, Reverend, for your influence.
sharing of merit. Right? Imina punya kammena upadjaya gunuttara acari upakaraca mata pita priyamamam Suryo Candi Maharaja Gunaranta Marapica Brahma Maharaja Indaca Lokapalaca Devata Yano Nitta Manusaca Majjata Vedita Pica Sabbe Satta Sukhiyantu Punyani Pakatani Me Sukhanca Tidandentu Kippam Papetavomatam Imina punya kammena imina uddhi kippan sulabhe ceva tanno padana tedanam yegantani hina dhamma yava nibbanato mamam nassantu sabbodayeva yatta jato bhave bhave ujjotitto ratipanyo salleko viriyamina Maralabantu nupasam katunca viriyesu me buddha dipavaro dhammo nato varuttamo nato pacceka sambuddho Sangho nato taramamam kesattamanubhavena naroka samlabhantumam. When is your Chinese New Year? 10th or 11th? The next Friday falls on what day? 11. So what do you think? You will be very busy, isn't it? Do you want to continue as usual or have a holiday on that day? Holiday? Okay. Okay. So I also must have a holiday. Okay, thank you.
To also worry more, right? But the wise person must know things as it is and don't worry. So this was the third step, not the second or the first step. People, the Buddha always teach like this, not to do evil, right? Stop evil, do good, but not attach to good, purify the mind. The highest one is the third one. People attach to the evil one, so they do evil. The people who do good attach to the goodness. So both of them suffer, but in different ways. If you want to be free from all suffering, you need to be above that, to purify the mind. But it doesn't mean that to do evil. Doesn't mean that, but not attach both evil and goodness. You understand this? Difficult, but in fact it is like that. In Zen teaching, they said that before I study Dhamma, I see the mountain as a mountain, the river as a river, the bridge as a bridge. When I study Dhamma, I see the mountain is not the mountain anymore. The river is not the river, it's just the water. It's not the river, right? But when I understand Dhamma, then the mountain becomes the mountain again, the river becomes a river again, the bliss becomes a bliss again. But it is the truth. There's two levels of truth. The first one we call is ultimate truth. The second we call is the conventional truth. The mountain is a conventional truth. We make agreement, this is the mountain, this is the river. We call it, we name it, right? But in fact, there's no mountain, there's no river. It's just material thing. It's just water, right? But if you want to live in the society, you need to know the conventional truth and call it as a mountain. But in your mind, you don't attach to that as a mountain. The mountain is just a concept that we use for this thing. For example, our parents, we teach our children that you have parents, right? This is your parent. You must be grateful to them. You must return them because they help you so much, right? We teach it to the children so that the children will become a good person, not to do something harmful to their parents, right? Not to do evil to their parents and to do good to their parents. But when your parents pass away, if you attach to the goodness, what you feel? Suffer, right? You cry so much. The more they are good parents, the more you cry. Because you attach to them. But if you consider the ultimate truth, it's just a thing that arise and fall, just come and go. It's impermanence. Then you can be better. In fact, there's no parent. In fact, it's just the concept. It's just the conventional truth. But it's good for the society to take that conventional truth so that you can do your duty. But that cannot free you from suffering. Sometimes it makes you suffer also if you do not be mindful enough. You understand this? So don't attach to the conventional truth. But we must accept to that because it is useful for us to live in the society, to perform our duty towards other people. But don't believe that it is supreme truth. Yes. Yes. We must see the context and the purpose of the teaching. He just want to make us feel that our parents, our father and mother, take care of us like that. We urine them, we hit them many times, but he do not get angry. So if we allow them to do with us like that, it's not enough. Why? The Buddha just want to show that if you make your parent become a king or a queen, and can get and become really rich also, and you serve them everything, it's not the way to return them. But the way to return them is to make them practice Dhamma. Why? Because when you come king and queen and the rich people, is it happy? No, it's not the real happiness, right? But if you help them to practice Dhamma, in the past they have no confidence, but now they have confidence. In the past they have no wisdom, but now they are wise. Now they have the precept, they have generosity in their mind. So they gain better kind of happiness. Then the Buddha said that this is the way to return your parent goodness. You understand this? Yes. Yeah. So it takes time to help the people to understand Dhamma is the most important, is the most difficult thing. Even the Buddha, when he enlightened, he also make decision to teach or not teach. At the beginning, he make decision not to teach, but later, in the scripture, they say that the Brahma Deva asked him to teach because some wise person can understand the truth. What is the Brahma? Is the goodness or the compassion in his mind. See this, and then he have tendency, he changed his mind to teach. Because he know that Dhamma is very difficult, it's very profound, so it's difficult to understand. And the teacher must work really hard. So he said that the teacher is the most important person in our life. Our mother and father is our first teacher. Teach you how to eat, how to walk, how to say, how to know this thing and this person. And we can imagine how they feel difficult to teach us compared to our difficulty to teach them Dhamma. I think they work more than that. Yeah? We know nothing. Our parents show us this is the world, this is that. So they teach us, but they teach us worldly things, right? So we try to repay, we try to return. So we teach them Dhamma, the supreme truth. Difficult, yes, it takes time, but it's the thing that we should try. For me, my father passed away last year. I plan to come here every year, but last year I cannot come because my father passed away before, at the period that I plan to come here. So I must be in Thailand, in Bangkok. My